So anyone here for the first time, joining for very first time?
Hey Sagar, this is Sharon. I didn't join yesterday. This is my first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the last class, we just went with some basics over here, like why Python automation, what is the scope of automation. So today is the day where we will go with the Python theory classes. Okay, some basics here. So let me share my screen. Just acknowledge me once you see my screen.
Yeah, you can see it.
Okay. So those who joined today for the very first time, these are few slides which we covered yesterday, and I hope you guys got the PDF as well. So those who joined our WhatsApp group, they in fact got this PDF as well, and I have added few more notes today. So for day two of the demo, I have added some Python theory to the same PDF. So I will also send you the updated sheet today after the class. All right. So that was something which we covered yesterday, and let's begin with the class two or demo two. And what do we need? First thing. So for my demo two, I can say class two, I need some tools where I can test out some my scripting. So before I start writing a network automation script, I definitely need to understand some theory, at least a basic theory which is relevant from network point of view. If you go via the generic Python, which holds good for data science, big data, AI, ML, machine learning, it's a huge topic. So we will only focus from network automation point of view, and we need some tools where we can write the code and we can test it. Even a two-line of code, we need some compiler or we need some platform. Okay, so we usually call it as ID, integrated development environment, which are tools basically. And these tools would be used to write, test, compile, debugging. There are a lot of them available in the market. One simplest one I can say is Pycharm. There is one more very popular one, Microsoft Visual Studio. So these both will do the job. I'm going to use Pycharm, but no issues. If you guys have Visual Studio, then definitely I can guide you on Visual Studio as well. Okay. But then, are this really necessary for today's class or might be in future? It is not actually necessary, or it's not mandatory that we need to use these two, or we have only these two as an option. I can also go with a very basic like Notepad plus plus or Sublime editors. But the problem is these will not let me have the error corrections or error detections highlighted. Okay. So I would not recommend going with Notepad plus plus or Sublime, even though you can write your code, you can test it, you can run the complete automation, but they will not help you recognize the error that you are making in your script. Okay. But again, that's not a roadblock that you do not have a option of installing Pycharm or Visual Studio inside your terminal server, or your customer do not let you to do that. So that's not a roadblock here. So you can still write on Notepad or Sublime. That's doable. But if you have an option of installing PyCharm or Visual Studio, then go with that. That would be your first preference of the tools for writing or compiling. Okay. And apart from this, Python itself will have its own idle, or I can say Python's own IDE, the native Python. I mean, say Python is a programming language. It itself is providing you a compiler where you can write and test. So that also is available with you, but with very less error detection and correction. Okay. And apart from this, you have PowerShell, which you can use. Uh, you can use, of course, Python idle. You can use the Notepad or Sublime. You can use the PyCharm, Microsoft Visual Studio. So there are n number of options which you can use. I'm going to show you few of them. At the end, they are all same. If you have one or at least two with you, the rest are just the same. They make no difference. So this is PowerShell, which we get in the Microsoft operating system. So earlier this used to be pre-installed, but I think nowadays Microsoft has removed this platform. You have to download from Microsoft website and install it. So this is one platform. You can pretty much get into the Python 3 console and do whatever you want. Okay, but remember, they may not be the easiest solution. You can do it, but not the easiest way of doing something. You want to come out of that console, you can come out of it. So how do you enter to the Python 3 console? By going with the short code py-3. So -3 resembles Python 3 version. You can see here what Python version I am running. So this is one method of testing or writing your code, but again, not very uh, easy to go kind of thing. If you want to go with the Python's native idle, which I said Python also offers you some sort of ID where you can write. So this is how the Python, you get this terminal the moment you install Python. So if you want to test something, you can test here. You have your output here. So there are different ways to do that. Okay. I will also show you one of the easiest method, which I would recommend everyone. Go with Pycharm, the community edition. So this tool is more professional, which has error detection, error correction, okay, which pops out if there is any known error in your scripting, and a lot of things that you can do it here. Say, for example, if I want to create a blank file, I go to File here, click on New. I say, okay, so File, New, Python file. I say New blank file .py. .py resembles, it's a Python script or Python platform. You can also see Python has been selected here because there are a couple of programming languages. It can support Java, it can support some other programming language, but I'm focused on Python. And over here, I can still practice my coding. So I say, like, for example, I say print hello world. And how do I run? I right click on this and click on run button. And then I have the compiler, which I can see if my code is right or wrong. So Pycharm also provides something called as the native console kind of platform, which is very similar to the previous one which we had seen. So over here as well, you can write your code. You can say that hello world and done. So Pycharm offers you two methods. One is this. I would definitely go with the first method, because if you commit any mistake here, it's gonna pop up. It's gonna show you over here that you're doing some sort of mistake here. Okay. If you prefer going with the second method, that is a direct native console method, you need to know if there is some issue, then there will be no error correction, or there will be no kind of warnings shown to you. Okay. So let's say if I make a use of for loop. So I say x equals to automation. I say for xyz in x, enter, and then I write something. Let's say print x or some so and so, enter. See, now I'm getting some sort of error now, and I'm clueless what error actually I'm doing over here. If you go with the same approach here, let's say x equals to automation for ABC in X, enter. So you see that error connection here. There will be error which is shown in a red tick mark. Let me go with the completion. So I did print text. We're very similar 2 to 3 lines of code which I have put here. See, here it wasn't showing me any error detection, but now I see some sort of error. And if I click on that red symbol, red button, which is over on the right hand side top. So if I click on that, double click it. So it says that it is expecting something. So that means I was missing out something. Now this is the right format, and I can run this file, something like this. Okay. So it depends what platform you want to use to write and test your scripting. But yes, there are a number of uh, tools available. You can also Google it for Python ID, and you will get lot of suggestions. So if you go with Python ID tools, there are so many free tools, paid tools. Lot of them are available. So I prefer going with Pycharm. But a lot of people also use Visual Studio, because uh, enterprise level, since the enterprise have a contract with the Microsoft as their operating system, so they get all these tools from Microsoft either for some discounted price or for free, like Outlook. These are all Microsoft product, and when you have operating system as your Windows Microsoft, you definitely have some sort of discount if you go with a bundle solution. So in an enterprise level, you will see a lot of people using Visual Studio. It's a good tool. Okay. And also Pycharm on other side is a very good tool. So you have to first download the required tool. So what are all the required tools? So earlier we used to download Python first from the official website of Python over here. There are different variant as per the operating system. If you have Windows, you click on Windows, download it, install it. It's a exe file. If you go with Mac and or Linux, there's a different version there. Okay, so Python, the official Python, the platform, they come in different variant, and as per operating system, we download it. This used to be the first step. The second step used to be to download Pycharm, the Pycharm ID. So which I can click on download Pycharm. There are two versions available. One is professional, which is of course paid. You will get 15 to 20 days of free trial, and then it start asking for license. So what we would do is we'll go with the community version, which is completely free to use them. So once you click on download, you will download the exe file. I can show you. So when you click on download, it start downloading. Okay, it's gonna ask me where do I wanna save. Let's say I say some folder of mine. Okay, it's a exe file. Save. Then it start downloading. It's a 372 MB file. So there used to be two steps, but nowadays what they have done is, what Pycharm has done is, you can download Pycharm as a first step, and once you download Pycharm, when you set the Pycharm initially, there is an option to even download Python from this Pycharm dashboard itself. Say for example, if I have Pycharm with me, so over here, over under settings, since I already have Python with me, so it has integrated. My PyCharm is integrated with Python. Let's say if in your case it's not integrated yet, which will still show no interpreter. That means the basic block programming language is not detected by PyCharm yet. So here you can click and download whichever program you need. Okay. Or if it is confusing, then do one thing, download both. That would be the simplest method. Go to Python, official website of Python is this. Go to download, go to Windows, download 3.9.7. So you get some packages here, 64-bit, 32-bit. So I'll go with 64-bit. Okay, so there are again couple of things. I'll go with the installer version, which is exe file, easy to install. So I click on this, which is exe file, save. So the download begins. So I have exe file for Python. I have exe file for Python. So two tools are sufficient to get started. How do you install? Again, it's a simplest option. Double click on the file which got downloaded. Okay, so let's say these are the two files that got downloaded. I'll double click on them. So since I already have this, it's going to ask me whether I want to upgrade or customize. In your case, it would be a fresh installation. So let's say you click on customized installation. So you just select whatever is available. Don't have to untick anything. Follow the on-screen method. Okay. And there is one option which you might have to select, where it says, do you want to save it on the path variable? So select that option when it's asking you path environment. This would be unticked. So what you need to do is you have to tick it. Okay, what it does it basically what it does it goes to that C drive registry and set this program, which if you don't do during the installation, then you might have to go manually to the registry of your Windows and then select it, which is again a lengthy process. You can do it later stages by referring some Google, but that's a lengthy step. So prefer doing in a simplified manner. So when it asks you for path environment, just tick that and follow the next button. There's no other options that you need to untick or tick other than path environment. So what it does it in the backend, it goes to the C drive registry and put this required uh, small registration file inside your operating system. Okay, so select that is when it comes to Python installation. Once you're done with this, Pycharm is pretty simple, straightforward. Okay, you just have to tell which path you want to install. There's something like this. It starts showing you. Click on next. Where do you want to install? Do you want to install? So since it has already detected my program, so it's asking me whether I want to uninstall this and reinstall the new version. Okay, so for you, it will show you the different drive, like C drive, D drive. Where do you want to install? And just follow on-screen method, and you should have your Pycharm looking like this. Okay, so how do you test you're good to go? Definitely one check that I can tell you or recommend you is to do a print statement. You can quickly do a print statement. So this print function is available in most of the programming world. Even C++ had its a way of print statement or hello statement where we see whether my program is running fine or my computer programming, the foundation is working fine. A similar way, it was also available in Java. It is available in Python as well. In Python, this is the format of print statement. This format of print can be differ in C++ or C or Java. Okay, but here in Python, this is the format. Let's say if Pycharm, the Pycharm that is on my screen, it doesn't detect Python. So it would have given me some sort of error saying that this print statement is not recognized or do not, I'm not able to recognize this. So that would be a clear indication that PyCharm is not integrated with Python. Okay. So in that case, what you do is you go to file, you go to settings. There are options here. If it, in your case, it might show as no interpreter. Now you need to get that selected where it reads 3.9. So this comes because I had installed Python as my step number one. Okay, so it automatically scan your drive and get this location. So that is one way. If it doesn't, then there is option to add as well. You can click on show all, you can click on the plus symbol, and then over here you have option to select where did you install it, whether on C drive or D drive, and it will auto detect it. That's why I said select that path variable. And PyCharm, what it does, it goes to that particular path and pull this particular Python automatically from your drive. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, anyone have any question? All right, okay. So this is your first step where you go and select the programming language. Once you're set with that, you can give a quick test. So I said print hello world and I will run this. Okay. So, so guys, please be on mute if you're not talking. Okay. So give me a moment. My output terminal has gone out of the deck. All right. So it's back on the deck. So when I run this, I can see something on my screen. Now, what things do you need to understand from this tool point of view? So over here are all your, I can say your bookmarks. Okay. Let me use a different color. So let's say this is your bookmark or your history or all your project file on your left hand side. These are the top menus where you will see your ongoing scripting. If you're working on 10 different script, you will definitely have 10 different tabs, right? And each tab will represent to some script or whatever you're testing. So all the opened files will be located here. Over here is your output terminal. If you write a script, how do you come to know that you are writing a right script? If it doesn't show you error or if it doesn't show you whatever is expected from that script, right? You need a output when you write something, when you script something, you need to know whether your script is good or bad. How do you come to know? So here in this output terminal, I get to see that my Python is installed here, so and so, or my file is located at so and so. This is the path of my program or the script that I'm running. This is the output. It could be anything. It could be a simple message that I'm printing. I'm saying it's a pass message or it's a fail message. Could be anything. It's my message that I have put here. And then a code of zero. So if you see code of zero, that means it is a successful result. Okay. So in Python automation, if you see your script ended with code zero, that means your script is good, no issues. If you see -1 or some sort of red, red ink, say for example, I had written a wrong line. I missed to close this. And if I run, now you see my code level also got changed. It's no more zero. So zero is a good signal, but not apart from zero. And on basis of those code zero also we can program it. If my device is up, I get code zero and I can say that then do a SSH to this box. So this matters a lot. It's not that just to see and ignore it. You can do other sort of logic building as well. Okay. So this is it output terminal for on this Pycharm. Apart from that, there are some tabs here like to do. If you have some error detections or corrections, then the suggestions would be popped up here. So right now I'm missing something. So it says that it's expecting something. So that should be an indication to me and I should fix it up. This is terminal. This is very, very similar to your CMD terminal of your operating system. You might be aware of this, right? You go with IP config. The similar way, this is also native CMD, which is available in Pycharm. You do not have to go to CMD and do something. You can do it directly from Pycharm. These are the Python package. Whatever I have installed or whichever I'm going to install in future, they all get shown up here. Okay. How do I install? Again, I go to file, I go to settings. Over here under Python interpreter, I have this plus symbol. So if I click here, I have a lot of additional components that I can install it, like plugins, modules, which I can install over here. If I want to have some password related encryption modules, I can do that. So it depends on what I am going to install. At the very first, there might be only two packages. One is pip and one is something called wheel, which will be pre-installed when you have Pycharm, but then you have to install it. So whatever you see, this is being installed by me for writing some script. So that is what in short form, it's showing us over here that what all package I have it. If you want, you can go and keep installing. You can also click on the refresh button to reload any of the plugins, or if you want to update them. Also, the last tab here is Python console. As I told you, over here in Pycharm, you have two ways. You can go with the blank file, or you can go with that native Python idle option to test something quickly and then press enter. So you have your output. Okay. So this is something about Pycharm. And apart from that, how do you run a script? Now you see here, there are three opened file with me. So there are different ways to run the script. Let's say I wanted to execute this one. Or let's say I wanted to run this file. Okay. I can click over on that tab and then I can run the program. That is one best method. There are, of course, different methods available. You can click here. Okay. You can also click here and you can also go to the run button and there is a run option over there. So if I click on that run button, see there is an option to run. But the other options, apart from one, that is 2, 3, 4, make sure they are pointing to your file, because most of the time they point to the last or previously ran file. Okay. So as I told you, let's assume that I'm going to execute this file, which is highlighted with that blue mark ink. But since I had ran some other file previously, if I just go blindly and click on that run button, there is a high chances the previously ran file will be still pointing at, right? So either you have to click on this and change to the recent one, whichever you need, or you just execute for one time the script. So what happens is, let's say if I just run this, you see it also got changed on the other side. Even here, the new file gets popped up. Now you are free to click on this or this or this. The second, third, fourth option is also good with now. Okay. So remember this thing here in Pycharm. So there are four ways. The one method which I always prefer is right click on that script, whichever script you want to execute, and then click on run, because that will give you 100% assurance that you are running the right script. Otherwise, what happens if you went to some other file, there is chances that your other methods of run are still pointing to that previous script itself. If you just go and run this, so it will run the previously ran script. See, even here it's pointing to the previous ran script. So you have to either click change, or I would suggest go with the first option of right click and so, easiest option. So any doubt here in over here, Pycharm?
Hey, Sagar, Shashank here. I have
Yes.
dumb question with never being programmed in my life, so this is my first programming class. So when you said IDE, is it just like a placeholder where it gives us is it like a run book where we can build the code?
Yes, you
Uh,
can call it
uh,
as a run book, or you can call it as a script as well, where we write the code, where we test it, where we can debug it, we can compile it. So a platform where we can write the program and we can execute and make the things work. So
okay,
that is
so
basically
if I
the
have
idea.
okay, and thanks, and I see you installed Pycharm and you did map this tool to that interpreter. Let's say if there is no no Python installed and just the Pycharm as standalone, and if we start writing the code in that plane where you have the piece of code, will it still identify or how it does? Like, does it still compile the code even without having the interpreter, mapped to this Pycharm? Or what happens when you just keep writing the code without the
It
Python
will,
being
it,
uh,
yeah, it will not work. It will not work. So if you
it's
don't have
same as
any
writing
foundation,
on a notepad, right? Then it
yes,
just
if
works
you
like
write it
it's
on
same as
notepad,
notepad.
yes. If you write on notepad, you will not yield any output for the print statement or something. This print statement, whichever we have written, they are a Python command or Python function. So it needs a foundation package. Otherwise, if you don't detect, then it will say that it's unable to find anything.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah,
So make
okay.
sure,
Thank you.
make,
So,
make sure, yeah, make sure when you have uh, PyCharm, it's also integrated to Python. Otherwise, it will be as good as writing, as you told, on a notepad kind of thing.
okay. And if you just have Pycharm and Python instead on the endpoint, and from that endpoint, let's say you have access to like all the infrastructure, like it could be a firewall or a router, and you have a requirement to just log into like 10 devices. And if you write the script in this Pycharm on this endpoint and with all the needed libraries and whatever, and if you just right click and run, does that mean that it is in action, like it's getting into the devices?
Yeah. So for that, there are some methods to see, to track whether your program is interacting with box, etc., etc. Okay. So I will tell you how do you come to know whether your script is
Okay,
talking
okay.
to the
So
box
all I
or.
want to ask is it just like a container which holds the piece of code, or that is where you run everything?
I didn't get you. Can you just reiterate.
So is it like a placeholder which has your piece of code, or is it the place where you run all your scripts?
See, this is a place where I run my script and I fetch the output from the box. See, for an example,
Okay.
let's say this is my computer, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and my computer is talking to all my Cisco box or switches, etc., firewalls or whatever. Okay, so my
Okay.
Python, I can say I have it over here. I write my script. I tell my computer to do the actionable items. So I write everything here, and then I say my
Okay.
computer who has a session created with the end devices. So if I want to fetch something, I will say my Pycharm script or my script saying that I want the output for this command. So my computer will do that for me.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah. I
whole
understood.
thing sits inside my computer. Whole thing sit inside my computer, and I say what to be done. If I want to print something, I want to fetch something, I want to configure something. It's inside my script. Everything. Even if I want to go to next line for some instance, I want to go to next line. Even that I have to program it, and then computer will behave as per the script. Whatever we said, the computer will do it. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
the
So then
computer
the
should
the
yeah, your computer should understand what are you going to ask computer to do it. Do you want to go to the next line, or do you want to do a SSH to something and something? You have to tell computer. So so this is a kind of like programming world where you will take the control, and in a programming world languages, you will explain computer what to be done.
okay. So thanks. Then Python
Okay.
software is more like a control plane. Yeah.
Yes. So even if
Yeah.
let's say you over here on a native terminal, if you want to take some sort of SSH, you basically go and do
Mm-hmm.
SSH and 1.1.1. Okay. The same thing on
Mm-hmm.
programming world, you have to define what you want the computer to do it. So there will be some
Right.
instruction, yeah, which has to be followed, and then the computer knows, okay, I need to
And
take SSH of so and so thing.
right, the interpreter, which is the Python, which runs under the
Yes.
hood to whatever you put here, it takes care of it. Like
Yes.
just
So that
like
is why,
whatever you
yeah.
did
So
as a
that is
session.
why, yeah. So that is why today I will show you some Python basic theory, which is frequently used in our scripting for all these things.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So
thanks.
guys, any other
Appreciate
question?
it, Sagar.
Yeah. Sure. No problem. All right. So let's begin with some
Sagar,
Python.
one question
Yeah.
before that. So
Yeah. Go ahead.
the interpreter you used earlier, is it for the Python console where you selected the path for the Python, right, in the settings?
Yeah. Under settings, you're telling. Yeah.
Yeah. So here interpreter you added Python 3.9, right? So is
Yes.
it the is it like adding the console Python console to this where you have
And see, ultimately, what happens is I will start coding in a Python available functions or syntax. So I need a program underlying which can recognize those commands. If I have Java and if I write the code in Python, they will not work for me.
okay.
Okay. So
Because
I
I'm
need a
using a
under
Mac. Yeah.
yeah.
So
If you're
I'm
using
using
Mac, yeah, if you're using Mac, then you have to do the same process. You have to install Python
okay.
first on your MacBook. On the terminal, there is option to install them, and then you can integrate with your Pycharm tool.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So as I told you, the simplest option would be just go with one print statement. You can also check over here whether Pycharm can detect Python 3.9 or whatever version you're running. Make sure it's 3 or above, because that's the trend now. The Python 2 has gone completely. It's an end of life. So prefer going with 3.4 or whatever 3.8 or 3.9, that's fine. Okay. All right. So let's say now I am sitting on top of Python and I have to make use of Python's functions or the data structures that is available over here in Python. Okay. So few of the things which we will use frequently could be print, comment statement. I will make use of variables. I'll make use of some data structures like strings, list, tuples, dictionary, bytes, boolean. Okay. Apart from this, some of the if statement, if else statement, while loop iteration, for loop iteration. So these are few things which we will use very frequently. Kind of like every script we are gonna use these of the elements. Yes, tell me.
You're going to use functions as well here and there.
Functions like,
Maybe like split function or,
yeah, these are functions only. Print is a function. So functions are nothing but it's a block of code. That's all. Okay. So Python has a lot of functions and those functions itself we will use it throughout. Otherwise,
Okay.
what happens is we have to code our own function, customized function. And as I told you yesterday, we are not a full stack engineer who will do something, reinvent the wheel. We will not do that. Whatever is available, we will leverage on those items. Okay. And then we will call in our scripting.
So Sagar, hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so in our scripting, so most of the time we don't require to define the functions or something like that. You mean to say?
We don't. We don't
Okay.
because that is already defined somewhere. We just call it.
Okay.
Okay. It's like your access list. You write something, permit statement for source and destination, and then you
Got it.
call
Yeah.
it somewhere in an interface. So we are not going to do the calling. We are not going to define the access list now. What is source? What is destination? Whether I'm blocking, that is not my job. But I will be calling it somewhere. Might be on
Okay.
under line VTY, could be on some loop back interface. So even here, functions are already defined somewhere. That is what we did it when I installed Python. Lot of things gets downloaded on my machine, which is sitting in an underlay fashion, and then I call it every time. Okay, so I will show you now. You will get more familiar to this. So let's say I'm talking about print statement first. Now this is a function which could be of 10, 20 lines. I do not know, but it's available in my Python. Okay, when I downloaded Python, the print function is available. Functions are nothing but they are just a block of code, lot of kind of like a lot of if statements could be included or some loops iterations could be included. We do not know. It has been coded and it is in uh, the Python language. I can say that way. Okay, a block of code which is placed in Python. Now we call them. Calling is just by defining it. That's all. So if I when I say this, that means I'm calling that particular function. Okay. So this is one simple statement which says print with the parenthesis. Okay. The bracket what you see here, round bracket, that's called as parenthesis here. Now what do you want to tell your computer? You want your computer to talk, right? And how do you make your computer to talk? You can say, you can program it. You can say whatever you want to talk. See, now what I did is I clicked on this. That's why it ran some of the previous script. So the best option would be right click on this. And then you get the output here. Hello world. Okay. So similar way, let's say I want to make my computer say automation. I'll run this automation. So you can program it. You can just go and do whatever you want your computer to do. Now, what is happening is it's between Pycharm and your computer. So let's say you have Pycharm plus Python, and this is your computer. You're asking your computer to print automation, but how would you tell that? How would your computer know what you want to uh, make computer speak or talk, right? So you have to program it by saying print statement. You say that to the computer that, hey, computer, say automation or print this to me. So basically, right now, what is happening is a output is being given to you. Computer is giving it in a format of output. So input is something and output is something. So print is recognized as a output function, which is used for output. Okay. Now, why print is important? Because right now it was between Pycharm and the computer. But the same computer in future will also be connected to routers. You have routers, you have switch, you have firewalls. Okay. And it's your computer which is connected to these things, not directly you're loading Pycharm over on this boxes, right? And let's say Pycharm is over here. And you start programming. So when you did print statement, your computer know what to talk and all those things, right? The work of print is to talk. Now let's assume my action was to get the output of show IP int brief, and that output the computer should give us in a format that I am expecting. So when I go to a Cisco box, when I do show IP int brief, I get the output. But how do I get that output on my terminal? So basically, my terminal is nothing but my computer needs to talk back to me saying that this is what I have it, right? So to do them, we have something called as variable, because I cannot directly say print this, because see, these are a static now. I have put something inside that. Now computer is talking back the same thing, static. But when I'm fetching some show output, it could be dynamic in nature. Switch one has a different output. R1 has a different output, right? So the best way is you collect the output. You collect them in some variable. Now variable are like empty containers or empty storage space. You make use of variable inside your script. You will send this variable in an empty fashion. Now what happens? This variable is carried in an empty manner. And whatever you're fetching, show IP in brief, the output is stored in this container. Now this is no more empty. It is now having a output of show IP in brief. And now what I do is I say, now print that variable which you fetched from this device. Now, what is computer going to talk? Computer is going to give me the output of that box, R10, R01 or switch 01. Okay. So two things I can get the output. One is static method. I say print hello world. It's a static message which I'm expecting. But sometimes you need output from the networking boxes like R01, router 01. Now you cannot give the complete output and ask computer to read. It could be a dynamic in nature, right? So what you do, you will send a variable, empty variable, the command get triggered, the output of that command will be put inside variable, and then that variable you are going to print it. But we know what is ultimately the print going to do. It's going to talk. So it's going to tell me what's the output here. So whatever you see here, over here, that's a result of that print statement. Okay. Now it again depends whether you want on your screen or not. You can ignore it. If you don't print, it's fine. You will not get the output. But in the backend, whatever you had to push the configurations or whatever show command, that will fetch, that will get triggered up, but that will not come back to you. Now that's a kind of a delimitation. You do not know what is happening in the backend, whether your commands got triggered, whether there was an issue while you put a global configuration CLI command, whether there was issue, how do you come to know? So you want your computer to give you all the communication, or kind of your computer should give you the output. That is the whole intention. And we have this print function from Python, which gives us, okay, if you want to have just static, you can keep it. If you want to have dynamic, then make use of a variable, push the command via variable, and then print that variable, and you will get the result of whatever you are expecting from the box. Okay. So in short, print is something which is used for uh, to see this message on the screen, I can say that way, or it's a output what you are expecting for this line, or if it is a variable. Let's say what is variable, I will show you that as well. So let's say I make use of a variable. I'm gonna call it as XYZ equals to hello world. So my data, this is my data, which is stored in variable empty space. Now this is no more empty space because I have assigned the data inside that, and that variable, let's take a print. See. So basically print is going to give you the output. What output you need, that you have to program it in your scripting. Okay, so this is a print statement which helps you on doing all these stuffs. You can print n number of things. If you see one script, there are a lot of print statements that I have collected. I want to see whether the management IP was recognized. I want to see what is the blacklist IP that is to be printed. It helps me to understand my script is good till here. My script is good till here. If there is some print statement, I get to know. Okay, so where do I get to know? On this terminal. I get to know whether I'm doing a right process or I'm missing out something. If you don't keep a print statement, you never come to know. Might be your script ran with a code 0, but in the backend, you do not know whether it really configured or not, right? So it's a best practice to keep print statement, no harm. You just take print statement and you are more confident about your script, whether you're doing right or wrong, okay? And what about this now? And what about this now? What about this now? Okay. Also, in my previous example, I also went with
Sagar, Pavan here. So
Yeah.
something which is in the parenthesis, can we call it as a variable or something between the inverted commas?
Yes, I will tell you that. Yes, I will.
Okay, sure.
Okay. See, there are two ways that I have put right now. This is, let's say, first method, and this is the second method, and both are yielding me the output. So this method is where I assigned variable and the data was assigned to that variable. And then I took a print of that particular variable, the first method. Whereas the second method, I define my data directly inside a print statement, inside that inverted comma. Now, what does that inverted comma signify? Or you can see the inverted comma was earlier used here as well. So there is something to do with the inverted comma. So what do you understand by that inverted comma?
Is it like the true value instead of variable?
Okay,
Like a
see.
static data?
Yeah, so here inverted comma is nothing but it says that it's a string. Okay, which is again a topic under Python's data structure. Data structures are your actual data. Now, data could be anything, right? It could be an important piece of information to you, or it cannot be an important piece of data. But that data could be important for someone else. It could be your username, could be your password, it could be the IP address, right? Data is something, a piece of information. Now, that data can be of various format. It could be text, numbers, decimal. Let's say you have multiple text to be sent, like you have 10 different users name inside your scripting, or let's say you have 10 different IPs that you're dealing with. So data can be segmented. It could be a single data. Right now it's a single data, which I represented with the inverted comma, which is nothing but in Python called a string. Okay. I'm going to call this as, let's say, a text or let's say characters. And how are string represented? With single inverted comma or double inverted comma. The whole thing, I can also put single inverted comma. So I take back those and I keep it single inverted comma like this. So I have single inverted comma, I have double inverted comma. They are still strings itself, and they will yield you the same expected value. Then why do we need two different things to confuse us? Why do we need inverted as well as double inverted? Now the reason is there could be chances in your single line of string where you have two or three concatenation in the sense you're adding something. Okay, I'm gonna write concatenation. So my first inverted comma, let's say I picked up double inverted comma, where I say let's say for an example I say 1.1.1.1. so this is whole thing a one piece of string. Okay, but by some reason, let's say I also had to add one more device, which I add like this. Okay, this is another piece of string, but ultimately I have to close them. They both have to be within single data where I can put inverted comma like this. Okay, this is why we have two different representation. Otherwise, what would happen is if you would have gone with single inverted comma everywhere, okay, this and this would have closed your data, or it would have said that this is the start and this is the end. So there was no way we could have said that no, this is not the end. Instead, this is the end. This is the end. Okay, that is why in certain places we need both the types getting utilized, that is single as well as double inverted comma. But make sure whatever you use, it's consistent. You do not use single with double. Now this will not work for you. Okay, either go with single and single inverted comma or go with double, but not a inconsistency allowed here. So that is one reason why we need both. You can go with either one of them most of the time, but there could be some scenario where you need both of them. Okay, so this is a string, one of Python's data structure, which is nothing but the data, actual data. How you represent it depends. So on the first scenario, I put it inside variable. So variables are empty container where you can store your data. Let's say this is a empty bowl. Okay, and you want to store some string as data. So let's say you want to store username. Your username is admin. So this variable I can call, or I can define some name to this. I can say this is my username. So whenever you see a variable with the assignment operator, that means it's a variable. And on your right hand side, you should have your data. So data could be either in a string format, it could be number format, it could be a list, that is multiple data if you want to pass it on. You have dictionary. So there could be different types of data which is assigned to variable. Okay, so variable is very important element here. Again, widely used every time we are gonna use variables. I will show you some examples of variables. So this is my variable xyz 123, where I have assigned some data which is in string format. Let's say I have some more variables where I want to define numbers. Let's say I have a list of data where I say hello. I can say 1.1.1. I can say 2.2.2, 3.3.3. So these are all data. They are stored on the respective variables. What do you want to print? It depends on you. If you want to print ABC, you will say that I want to print the content of that variable, and you will hit on run button. So now you see, you only get the output of 1, 2, 3 only. Let's say you wanted to go with so and so. So you got the output of only one variable now. If you want the output of all the three, then make use of three different statements. You can say you need output from all these three. So you get something in this way. Why this is helpful is, as I told you, when you start writing your network automation script, there are certain place where you want to print it. It's not that everything, every variable you want to print. See, in here, in this script, this is variable, but I don't want to print this. Instead, I want to print only this. This is variable, this was variable, this was variable. Again, I don't want to print them, right? So whatever is required, I only print them so that my output remains to the exact information that I am expecting. When I deal with 100 of boxes, there is a chances I flood with lot of information which is not relevant to me. Okay, so sometimes you have to see where do you want to make the print statement. How do you print? It depends. Either you can also put a static value to this. So let's say I wanted to put a static value saying that G key was successfully fetched. Now this is a static value. Why I'm placing this? Because it gives me a hint here. Whenever my script ran, it goes in a sequence order, one after one. Okay. So when it comes to this line, it gives me an indication. All right, my script has passed this line. So it has gone it is moving below line number 8 now. So you see there are line numbers 1, 2, 3. So at line number 8, I had this static print statement. So if I see that, I get a clue on this device. I have reached line number 8. Now this is what is expected. This is what is expected. I can place might be one more print statement at the very end saying that this device successfully done. Right. So it is an indication which allows you. So one way was static way. The other way was the dynamic way. As per the above conditions or above requirements, you get some sort of print statement. Now this is a variable method. Okay, that's what I did here. These are all variable method of taking the print statement. These are very useful when you go with show IP int command, etc. So if you have show IP int brief, will make use of a variable. That variable will go and tell the computer that this is what is I'm consisting of. Computer will make a request to the box, will grab the detail, put in a variable, and that variable will later we will fetch it out. Okay, so those are few things here. Now there are a lot of confusion in the naming conversion of variable. Some say that can I use just single character? Okay. Yes, you can use them. You can use a single character as well. If you want to print it, you can still yield your output. Some people go with kind of a bulky word, like let's say real time, STP, timers. Some people say that real OSPF neighbors. Some say that multiple devices. Why they give this sort of words are it makes more meaningful sentences. If someone later on is trying to do some changes, he comes to know, okay, what's happening here. So this is where I take STP neighborship. Let's say this is where I take OSPF neighborship. This is where I take multiple device and I run. I still get the same output. Okay. It's just that how you name them. But is there any limitation here? Yes, there are some limitations. Limitation in the sense you cannot have some characters like underscore. Okay. So let's say if I run this. All right. So all right. So what is not allowed, by the way? I will tell you that. So let's say you have a number. Now this will be not allowed because your variable has some thumbnails where it says that you cannot make a variable with which starts with some sort of numbers. Neither you can have some sort of symbols inserted here. Okay. So let's say if you go with at the rate, so that will be not allowed. What is allowed? You can have any sort of word as a character, or you can have single character as well. They are all allowed. And also you need to know these are case sensitive. So if you say this as one of your variable, now don't think this resembles this one because they are case sensitive. You should replace this with something like this. Okay, they have to be matched up. So these are some limitation and what's allowed here. You can allow letters or underscore character. You cannot start with number. A variable can contain numbers, which I said you cannot have numbers here, but yes, you can have it somewhere here like this, or at the end is allowed, but not at the beginning of this. Okay. And they are case sensitive. These are few things which you need to remember here. So any doubts with variables? Why do we use variable?
So can we start with special characters?
Yes, you can use
Like or dollar.
No, dollars you cannot use. Let me see dollars. It will give you an error. Only underscore is allowed.
Okay, so maybe I think in the middle we can use the special characters maybe.
Yeah, those characters you can use in the middle somewhere. But again, it might break. Let's see. See, this will break it. So some characters, some special characters are totally ignored. We cannot use them. But again, if you have numbers, then you can use it here.
In similar way, we cannot start variable with numbers, right?
Yes, you cannot start with the numbers. Numbers are not allowed.
Even the hyphens are not allowed.
Hyphens are allowed at the start.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, hyphens are not allowed. Underscores are only allowed.
Yeah.
Okay, if I go with hyphens, now this will not be allowed.
Yeah, and the most important is variables are case sensitive.
Yes, it is also case sensitive. Okay, so remember, whatever you are using on top, those variables are to be called at the bottom. Okay, and just some theory here. There are three ways you can actually call them. One is Camel case of defining variables. That means let's say this word. So your except first word, the rest would be in a capital format. You can keep in this format. Some people make use of this variant in their scripting so that it looks kind of a unique and universal. So they follow this pattern where the first character will be lowercase, but later on you can keep them as a uppercase. But again, the same thing, you should print it up and the bottom. So this is one method called as Camel case. There is a Pascal case as well, which means you can make use of capital or uppercase on each word. Let's say something like this, where each character at beginning of each word or each word you can have a capital placed, or you can also have something called as snake case, where you can go something like underscore real time stp time or something like this. Okay, this is not any limitation or something. This is just to have a uniformity inside your script. So if when I use kind of a lengthy script, sometimes some variables would be used in one format, something that would be used in a different format. You can keep a uniformity, having some sort of recognized structure being allowed in Python. So you can use one of them, which helps you to keep a uniformity.
Sagar, frequently used variables are auto-populated. Eh?
Yes, variables are used very frequently. So
Okay, that's
every time,
auto-populating when you are
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
when you're typing, they are getting auto-populated, right?
Yes, yes, that is a benefit of Pycharm, which you do
Okay.
not, yeah, which you do not get on ID or the native terminals.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I said you error correction, error detection, pop-ups are also one of the feature here. Okay. So when I say just like this, it will start matching up whatever is present, and I can just make use of tab like how we do in Cisco boxes. Show IP, then we tab, then we get the complete auto populated, something similar feature. Okay, so we covered print, we covered variable, we know what is string under a data structure. Now, what are these two things which I have put here, and they don't also get triggered? If you see here, so you see here, I have the output, but then I do not have these two things getting printed up. So what is happening? Basically, those are considered as comment here. Comment in the sense to be ignored. Ignored by whom? By computer. So for whom are we writing this? This I'm writing it for, let's say, the next engineer who is gonna work on the script, or let's say the change executor. So I can put a statement saying that to modify the Cisco IP address, change the below line. To update the username, please modify the below line. So this is a notification for the executor. The computer should not be making any sort of uh, recognition here. Computer should not action here to these comment. These comment are just for our purpose, our readable purpose, not for computer. So how can you avoid computer reading something? By adding those hash symbol. Okay, so if you add hash symbol somewhere in front of the line, they get grayed out. That's why they are grayed out in nature. If you just take them out, now you see they are a valid lines now. Now my script can fail. Now my script says, what is this? My computer is asking, what is this? What do you want me to do? Or you want me to print? You want me to put it in a variable? You want me to push it to the Cisco box? What do you want me to do? You tell me. Which I have not told. I have not told. And that's why I get this sort of invalid syntax. Yes, I can place them under some variable immediately, something like this. Okay. Now they are a valid piece of information. They are in a structure. So whatever you write in your script, they should make a sense to the computer, because your computer is the one who is gonna read, talk to the box and back to you, right? So if you keep any kind of incomplete line, that will trigger you an issue. That is why if you have something which you don't want computer to take action on it, you just gray them out, something like this. You put a asterisk in front of it. You can
Sagar,
also, yes, go ahead.
sorry. When you say computer, is that Pycharm or is that a Python, actual Python?
See, Pycharm and Python, I'm taking as one piece.
Okay.
And for computer, I'm taking as this platform. Okay, so 3 platforms when I'm considering. So let's say I'm considering Pycharm plus Python, because Pycharm is just a platform where you write it. It's your Python who is doing the job, right? So I can say that Python and Pycharm is one piece of unit. Okay, no difference over here. It's your computer, and under computer, which where do we see the output? It's over on that Pycharm output terminal, and then whatever it's talking to. Sometimes you just talk between computer and the Python, like your static print statement. It was between your computer and your uh, the Python, right? But what happens when you want your computer to talk to the next remote box? So the instructions will be provided from your script. Your computer will action on it.
Yes, sir. I believe the Python, which is an interpreter, ignore the comments.
Yes, so these are all Python-based command. Pycharm is just a platform where you're testing it out.
Yes, and the action which read all the scripts is done by Python. Actually, Pycharm is an IDE. We write our codes, and through the Python, which is an interpreter, it read all the codes and
Yes.
execute it.
Yes, so whatever you have written here, they're all Python oriented. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
These are all Python oriented. The same piece of code I can use on PowerShell, or I can use on idle, and I can see what is happening with my Python code. All right, so what is this? This is comment. I can take this comment, I can place it here as well at the end of the line, but you cannot think in this manner, because then whole line gets grayed out. If you want to comment something at the end, you can use like this. You can say that this is to modify to update device username, something like this. Let's say if I had a lot of lines here, so which line is for which I can define here. So let's say to get the G drive key, I can say that to print variable G key. These are just print statement. You can write at the end of any line, or you could also write it here, but then that increases just unnecessary lines. If you have so many comment session, then you see that they get gradually increasing, right? So you can keep at the end so that to save some of the lines here.
Hey, Sagar, if I have to comment on multiple lines, do I need to put a hash in every line, or you can put starting and ending, something like that?
See, you have to put in front of every line, because this is valid only for single line. But there is one option. Let's say I want to comment this whole line. So
yeah, everything.
Instead of going like one by one, what I can do is I can select them all. I'll go to code, and there is an option like called as comment with line comment. It will gray out all of them.
Okay.
If I do Control C, it will put me back to that previous mode. So there is an option here where you can comment, but they are significant on a line basis, single line basis. One comment is significant to one line.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so this was related to print variable comment string. Now regarding open method, now this is one more function of Python. Now what this does is it helps me to read the content from a text file. Okay, so open doesn't open a file or create a file. You have to use some operations there. So open is used with different operations. I can say that. What you want to do with that file? Do you want to only read, or open, or append, or create them, it depends on it. Okay. So let's say a simple example would be to read something. So let's say I say XYZ equals to open. Which file do I want to open? Now there are some files on my left hand side. Let's say I want to see the content of this file, config.txt. So I say that the file called as config.txt, what to be done with this? So I want to read the content of it. And if I trigger this script, so I can see the content of it in a string format. So if I just double click that, you see the whole content is now visible here. Now, in what scenario you think this would be helpful? This would be helpful when you have your device IPs or username in a notepad, and then you want to call it, because it's not always a scenario where you can include username, password, and IP address inside your scripting, right? You have to keep it in an external notepad, and that notepad could be in your FTP drive or in your SCP drive, or it is in a D drive or in some customer drive. You can use the complete path as well, something like this. You can point to that file and then you can read the content of this. And once you read the content of that, that can be used for taking SSH, or can be considered as a username if you want the data for username or password. You can do a lot of things with the simple statement. So this is very important statement, and most of the time we are also going to use it. Just in the few classes, I will show you writing username and IP on the script, but then you know that that's not going to be a production scenario. You cannot include 100 of devices in your script. You have to keep it in an Excel sheet or an external notepad and read the content from it. So there is where this will come into picture. Okay. A simple thing what I did, I just read the content. And what if I wanted to create something, right? So creating will not happen at this point. This is only for read. Actually, there is a hidden operation added here, which is nothing but to read. So what this does is, this is like read only method. It's not gonna create any file. If the file is not present, for an example, let me show you 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see what it is potential to do it, whether it will create this or it will give me an error that file is not present at all. See, it's just created me a warning, a error message that that file is not present and I cannot read it. So always R is not the solution. We need certain scenarios where we want the file to be created. Okay, I'll tell you in which scenario, which option would you use it. So let's say for instance R, this will be used when you want to read list of IP address or username or password. Okay, so in that case, you want to only read it. Then in which case do you think you will write it? This would be the case when you are taking a backup. When you are taking a backup from Cisco box, you may not have those files with you. Do you think you will create 100 text file before the change, and then you will start filling those text files? It is not that way, right? So what we do is we run the script, and as the device is taking backup, we expect the backup is happening automatically on an external file as well. So parallelly, it will go to the box, it will fetch the command output, and we see that a text file is getting generated. It's getting auto created in the backend with all the backup, right? So that happens when you change the operations here. You can go with W. You have options like appending. So what this does is, let's say I have a backup of 1.1.1 saved in text format. So this is my output for show run. If you want to save multiple command output on a single file, then go with appending option, because now what happens, the second command output, let's say it was show clock, you can also save it under the same file instead of creating two different files. So 1.1.1, let me write here. So if let's say one file got generated for 1.1.1 for show run txt, and then another file gets generated for 1.1.1 show clock, do you think this makes sense if you have multiple files for multiple commands? Not a very good solution, right? You expect one box has one file and all the output of 10 commands put up in single file. Again, this could be as per your requirement as well. Okay, so there could be chances where you need one file and all the output of it to be placed in that. So in that scenario, you will go with appending. The new output always get added at the end. It's a appending in nature, not prepending, appending in nature. Okay, at the end it's gonna add it. And if you want to go with new separate file, then you can go with W as an option. So it will give you output for only one command at a time. So if you need multiple file for single box, then go with W. I will show you all this in a network scripting as well, since we are just going with the basic theory today. So just understand what we have here and what all things. Later on, this whole thing get repeated when we start writing the script as well. Okay. In that case, I will still just recap everything and tell you what happens, and what happens.
It's not a quick question there.
Yes.
Is the keyword read, is it like a nested function within the print function?
It is not a nested function. Instead, it is used to read the content of that variable.
Okay, so is it like a print? Like when you're printing a variable XYZ and followed
Yes.
by you mentioned read. So is read considered as a function?
Yes, read can be
Which is
considered as a function.
which actually reading all the values within the XYZ file.
Yes, that's right. So we have read. We also have something called as write. So write is when you are creating a new file. I will show you this. Okay. So let's say so
Okay,
let's
sure.
say the first. Yeah, so let's say the first example was for only read. Now let's say you wanted to create a new file and you wanted to copy some dummy junk data inside that. Just for an example now. So let's say I went with open. I know the limitation of R. It's not gonna create new file. In case that file is not in your drive, either you have to create it manually, then you can say read, but that is not a solution here. Instead, I'll go with W. So what W does is it will create a new file if that file is not present. If that file is not present, it's gonna create it, and also it will overlap. That means you run the script twice. Your first one would be overlapped with your second instance of data. So sometimes it's not good. You will lose your previous day data, backup data. So for that, we have different approaches how you can save backup of last 6 months instead of losing it. But that is how W operates. It creates new file, plus it will overlap if there was a file previously present. So you have a tendency or chances you miss your previous day of data. Okay. So let's say I created one file and I want to put a banner, some banner. I'll also talk about this. Let's say this is authorized Cisco box, not to be used by unauthorized users. Kind of a banner which I say I want to put it up, which I do not have at the moment. How do I create this? I can, so my file gets created at this step. If empty file gets created at this step, this is the data which I want to put back. So I can say that ABC or ABC equals to open up. Which file do you want to open? The file which was created in the step number 1. And okay, so how do I place that back is, yeah, so I can say that let's say Z equals to what is my variable XYZ, and then I can go with write option. And what do you want to write it? I want to write the content of banner. So these lines will create a file, and also it will put the content that's present inside this variable banner to that file. But how do I read it back? I can open it up manually by double click and seeing whether it is done, or I know how can I read. So let's automate that stuff. So I can say that print abc dot read that variable. Okay, and let's run this script.
Print XYZ or ABC?
Yeah, so it is z read. Okay. Okay, F open, we are XYZ, we are opening this. We have Z to copy the banner. And then what are we reading it? So let's say
ABC.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if the file has created. Yeah, file has created. We see the content. Let's see if this is the right file that we are reading. So file has been created here. Okay, I can see that file is created. The banner is printed. Let's comment this. Okay, so there we go. So something was overlapping in that case. Okay, so we can do this way, the workaround. So what I did is I just said create a new file, write in a write operation, basically to create the file. This is my variable with some sort of multi-line string. This is called as multi-line string. And then I said write it to that variable. Write it to that file which I've created it. So XYZ is the name of that file or the variable for that particular instance. And then I say write it, and then I read that back. Okay, so this is all open function of Python where I'm using the different operations.
So it's basically you're creating a variable with the empty file and then assigning the content to that empty file. It's variable calling another variable, and then you're printing the same, right?
Yeah, yes, that's right.
Hey, Sagar, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, can you go back to the previous screen? Yeah, because you already placed the banner into the Z variable, right? Why don't you open the Z variable directly and then read it from the Z itself? Why do we need it to read it from XYZ?
Because I'm reading the file which is in my local drive. My intention is to read. See, I can also keep it independent here. So the intention was to read the content from the file that is created, not from this itself. That is
okay.
Why.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
It depends on your requirement. If you want to read this, which ultimately has the content, you can just read the content. But my intention was to read whether the file got created and what is the content of that file.
Yep, got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so guys, let me just summarize what we discussed. We discussed Python print function. We discussed comment. We discussed the data structure, but only string so far. We discussed variables. We discussed open function. I think pretty much this and the installation of Pycharm, Python. So just brush up on these things. So tomorrow we would discuss on other data structures here: list, dictionary, if else statement, for loop, while loop. Okay, and some error handling. So we are good for theory then, and then we can start writing our scripts. So when we write our script, we will definitely be using these things, and I have to repeat all the things once again, where to use what, and so it will be kind of a recap for you once again when we start writing them. So any questions for the day?
I have a question, Sagar. Can you
Yeah.
please stop the recording? This is not about the class, but
Okay, then might be you call me over on WhatsApp. Okay.
no, I mean it's about. I mean it's the useful one for everybody on the call. I have few of my friends also who's facing the issue. So it's about the mute and unmute button.
Yeah. That is what we will talk this over in the WhatsApp, because there are other
Sure, thank you.
participants here. Okay, for mute and unmute, this is just the first week where this webinar we are conducting. From the next week, we are conducting a locked session where it will be in a meeting approach. Okay. So this is just the first week where we are conducting on webinar. That's why I said those guys raise your hand so that you guys can have unmute button with you. All right, guys. So that's all for today. I'll just drop our contact number and WhatsApp number where you can contact us. So guys, those who have not enrolled, please join that WhatsApp group so that we can provide you the enrollment detail. All right, guys. So have a nice day. Let's catch up tomorrow, and the recordings will be available. The notes will be provided on the group itself. So just recap and see you tomorrow. Have a nice day, everyone.